Pseudo-legendary Pokemon are pretty cool, I guess. I know they are pretty popular, but besides Metagross, I never had one on my main team. They just never appealed to me that much. And come to think of it, Metagross is also the only non-dragony dinosaur-y looking one. Maybe that has something to do with it. Which would make sense, as I also absolutely adore the pseudo-legendary in Sword and Shield. While it is dragon type, it doesn't look much like a dragon. It's more of a ghost salamander with a stealth bomber for a head. It's Dragapult. I just love it so much.
Mother, please! We crave violence!
Dragapult is the pseudo-legendary that is the topic of today's video. What is it? And what is it not? That is the question. And for you uncultured heathens, that's a Hamlet reference. If you don't know what that is, Lion King. But seriously, what is this creative and cool creature? Well, like many Pokemon, there is a lot behind it, which is great for me because 10-minute videos help with the algorithm. So let's start with the obvious and then get into the more hidden details. You get it? Because of the tail thing, it's invisible at the end, so it's hidden. It's a detail. Tail? No? Guess what I have in my hands right now? If you said an epically impressive RPG that changes everything you thought you knew about mobile games that you too can get by clicking on the link in the description, then you were absolutely right. Crystalborn recently released, and it's got quite the nice aesthetic. Fight unique bosses, collect exclusive heroes, and go toe-to-toe in the PvP modes or through an epic campaign. All with fully animated attacks and stunning visual effects in breathtaking arenas. Look at this guy! It's just a plant! I love him! He's my little pistachio boy! In all honesty though, I really do dig these designs. The armor is super cool. And the best part of all, of course, is that the game is not only available on iOS and Android, but it is also totally free to download. Epic. So if Crystalborn looks interesting to you, please use the link down in the description to download it, and a big thanks to MZ for sponsoring this video. Dragapult's line has an oddly specific head. This is very similar to Stealth Bombers, specifically the Northrop Gunman B2 Spirit. Ah, Spirit! You know, Spirit, it's fitting, it's a ghost type. It's the Spirit. But along with that, there is also a more natural inspiration, the Diplocalus, which up until this point I've always pronounced Diplocalcus. I don't know where that extra C came from, probably its head. Some folks call it the boomerang gecko, which isn't funny. It's not coming back. It's extinct. It's also why it's ghost type. This absurd newt has a boomerang-shaped head that has had paleontologists debating on its function for ages. One theory is that they acted as a deterrent to predators. I mean, if you ever tried to eat a boomerang, it's difficult. The splinters you get from trying is just not worth the meal. Another idea is that bigger mouth equals an easier time grabbing prey, which stems from the idea that dinosaurs with bigger mouths were less picky about what they eat. They'll swallow whatever happens to get in there and let their stomachs deal with it, kinda like munchlax. Whereas smaller-mouthed and beaked dinosaurs had to chew their food and be quite particular about what they ingested. These days, rather than throwing fossils together and making odd guesses, shameless plug to our video about the new fossil Pokemon, we are now in a golden age of paleontology. We are discovering fossils at amazing rates and are advancing technology to help us learn more about them. Now we can scan fossils and learn loads more about them that paleontologists a century ago would just explode at excitement about. We can finally tell what colors dinosaurs were based on their pigment cells. We can actually tell what dinosaurs had feathers now too. We can even tell if they were male or female. And with this, we can also reconstruct skeletons and 3D print them. And that's what scientists did to this skull. And through experiments, we have found that this skull gave the Diplocalus a lot of lift. Let's go ahead and keep this explanation short and simple. Lift is the force things like airplanes use to go up. Because of the shape and surface area of their wings, they create differences in air pressure as they move forward, and thus, the air pushes them up. There's like massive books talking about that. There it is in a few sentences. But yeah, obviously there's a lot more to it than just that, but that is not what this video is about. But This prehistoric amphibian likely used the lift to swim super fast, powered by their thick tails, as hydrodynamics and aerodynamics are similar enough for our use today. In terms of lift specifically, it would allow it to either flee water-based predators up and out of the water, jumping like dolphins, or it allowed it to quickly shoot itself out of the water to grab prey on the beach, like some crocodiles do today. Then of course, the shape also just makes it go faster always, on top of that. But apparently, because of its shape, the loss in lift when it opens its mouth is actually negligible, and as such, it was likely a boom and zoom predator, meaning it would swim super fast, open its mouth, and just go through a whole school of fish, or a swarm of insects right above the water, or whatever. It's the same tactic fighter pilots use. Boom and zoom. They fly right towards their target, attack, and then fly away before their target can retaliate, if it lived. And so, all the lift in this shape does explain the fighter jet and stealth bomber inspiration, because they are planes that use this similar shape to fly. And the jet stuff does go deeper. Drakloak gets its name from cloak because it's creepy and partially invisible, it's cloaked. Also, stealth bomber technology, it cloaks it, ghost type and all. But then Drak can come from Drake, a specific type of dragon, but it can also come from Draken International, the biggest manufacturer of military fighter jets, which of course has many jets named after them. Dreepy works well as a thing for them to launch too, as it has little stabilizers on its butt, just like these supersonic missiles that fighter jets launch. Also, it's just like how its Pokedex says that it gets shot at supersonic speeds. They crave violence. Also, those little gill frill things are only found on the first evolution, and that's good because it's similar to how salamanders are born in the water with gills like this, but they lose them as they age. And then, Dragapult specifically is not only a stealth bomber, but also an aircraft carrier, hence it carrying two Dreepy, like two little planes. Dragapult's stomach is a little runway strip, and then it launches the Dreepy similarly to how aircraft carriers launch the jets. The bottoms of the jets on aircraft carriers are hooked up to multiple catapults that then use pressurized pistons to send them flying, as aircraft carriers aren't long enough for the jets to get up to speed on their own. And likewise, we can see Dragapult puffing out its cheeks to create more pressure to launch the Dreepy forward. Also, yes, they are called catapults. That's why Dragapult has catapult in the name, not because of classical catapults from the medieval times, you sillies. In complete honesty, these Pokemon are the perfect examples of how to do an airplane Pokemon right. Too many Fakemon of airplane Pokemon are literally just an airplane with a face, and that's gross. Two more details. The shiny colors of these Pokemon are blue and yellow, and that may be a reference to the Blue Angels, world famous for their air shows where they do tricks in fighter jets. But also, why are these Pokemon in Galar? What's so British about them? Well, while not what we know of as aircraft carriers today, the first aircraft to launch from a boat was British. And also, modern aircraft carriers, while primarily American, did involve a lot of cooperation with the UK while researching and developing them. In fact, the first man to take off and re-land on one was British himself. And I think that just about does it for the jet inspirations, but there is more animal inspiration to be found here, and I really want to mention it. The way Dragapult holds itself is very similar to how alligators and crocodiles hold themselves underwater. I mean, just look at this. Many of them will also carry their babies on their heads while doing this. I mean, I already mentioned Crocodilia earlier in the video, and being the sneaky ambush predators that they are, fitting of a stealth bomber ghost type. Plus, why else would Dragapult be able to learn quite a few water type moves like dive and surf? Well, I guess the Diplodocus does that too. But if there's one thing I've learned in my Pokemon research over the years, it's that the best Pokemon have multiple inspirations. And seeing as Diplocaluses are flat as a pancake. Pancakes! And most Crocodilia have a body shape more similar to Dragapult. Yeah, it's definitely a mix, especially when you look into mini Crocodilia's maternal instincts. It may be hard to believe that these ferocious animals can be loving mothers, but it's true. The mothers will bury themselves underground during the incubation process to regulate the temperature, all without eating or drinking. And then many species will stick with their babies to protect them, having them ride on their heads and backs, and even in their mouths. Speaking of which, you may have heard that crocs are cannibals, sometimes even eating their own young, and that is true for some species, and usually only the males. So Dragapult is definitely on the more loving maternal side. I mean, it's a Pokemon. Of course it is. And so, there you have it. Dragapult is a salamander, crocodile, Diplodocus, stealth bomber, and aircraft carrier thing. Multiple inspirations and elements all coming together to create just an awesome Pokemon line, as it always should be. Do you have anything to add? Let me know down below, and until next time, please never stop using your noggin.